So welcome to Sysonex, solutions that inspire you, and really appreciate the fact that you guys could make it here today. It is absolutely a privilege to share what we find and what we've understood from the industry and from talking to different boards throughout North America and some in Asia. So first thing we wanted to talk about today is the idea of data analytics, and the ultimate result and output of that is heat maps for the board. Why should boards really care about heat maps? Are they really caring about heat maps these days? Well, in fact, what they're really looking for and what they're really striving for is that can we have more data, more insight, because they want to deliver on more accountability, more involvement, and that right level of insight is not present. So there are different definitely different stakeholders that are providing different kinds of data, but the right kind of data that is supposed to come straight from the organization, that's lost in static information. And we're trying to say that, is there opportunity to improve here? Is there an opportunity that we can make things better for the board? So let's go to the next thing. Today's sponsor, Sysonex, next generation technology company, 3 products, Sys Audit, and Sysincident, and we're hoping to deliver strategic advantage to our clients. So that's a quick blurb from the company itself. So let's go to the main thing that I really want to share with you guys, which is risk management capabilities boards want most as part of their maturity. So they're definitely looking at visualization. They're definitely saying we want to see more, provide more actionable, content-based, aware decisions and directions, but we need to visualize things. The other item that they're looking at is that we need to prioritize. We need to prioritize information so that way the right information, while it's not only appearing to us, we know the right importance of information that needs to be driven. The other aspect of it is like central collaboration. So we want to have efficient governance and data-driven decision making, where really all of this conversation that is really going on is about data-driven decision making and how we can really utilize data towards generating views, viewpoints, and decisions for board and board members. Governance is a common tenet for boards all across the world, realizing that there are definitely different regulatory bodies that impact corporate decisions and corporate boards, but governance is that common item that we've seen repeatedly again and again, that is part and parcel for every single organization. And the interesting thing is that you can only govern what you can see, what you can visualize, what you can understand. Some aspect that we've actually also noticed that as the boards are actually evolving is that in case of Wells Fargo, we saw that there's board accountability issues were identified where there was failure of oversight, risk culture was ignored, and there was a delayed response. And that, like resulted in a lot of penalty for Wells Fargo. When you're looking at OpenAI, where the board were actually shaking up the organization itself, and the removal and subsequent reinstatement of the CEO, you realize likely that was not the best thing for the board to do, and there's a lot of change as a result of the board. So the board literally failed to visualize and prioritize, enable collaboration, get the data-driven decision making, and enable governance. All the while, they were truly a data-driven organization. I have to mention about Capital One. There was cybersecurity ruling that they and this board level disclosure of cybersecurity expertise that they've requested for. So the other one is is I have to mention, and this is about Pfizer board, where they realized the mRNA vaccine development and its greater investment requirement, and that resulted in, quite a bit of profit and growth for the organization itself. So again, lots of data that's allowing them to make the decisions that allows the organization to move forward. So that being said, where does the board really sit in all of this like flow of a risk management organization? So risk is being not coming from a single siloed entity. Risk is not being observed by a individual or a collection of individuals. Risk is not it's not a individual sport. It's not like you just there's one person who's dedicated towards risk. Rather, it's really a team sport where the team and the entire organization itself is looking at risk management, and it really starts with the frontline staff here. And I want to say the frontline staff are involved in looking at the data. They observe minuscule amounts of data. They're loading that data, they're entering, updating that data. So I want to say that the first issue really is with regards to a lot of companies forgetting to enter quality data for their risk management activity. You can't have visualization, you can't have effective decision making without right data being present. The other part is, articulating risk through the enterprise. So while we have the data, there needs to be individuals who say, this data is a violation of the controls. This data is tied with a particular risk that we're monitoring. So that identification, these are really your business stakeholders and line of business execs who are saying, these are the risks that we're identifying. These are the issues that we've identified based on that same data. Then the next phase is really a risk analyst or a risk management team member tracking a risk and ensuring that the risk tools are present, so that way the risk are actually triaged, the risk are actually treated and actually managed, mitigated. So all the while, this is where your entire organization is really working together with the risk management team itself. The risk manager and your risk director or chief risk officer is really looking at the controls are in place, dashboards are in place, there's an ongoing improvement that is happening, visualization is happening, risk resolution workflow and the frameworks are present. You're able to aggregate visualization, there's self-assessment, and there's monitoring happening. So this really ties into the entire risk management from an organizational level being delivered to the organization. And this is not, as I mentioned, this is not a single person activity. This is not the activity done by few select individuals, rather a organization that manages risk well also succeeds well is because they have a greater degree of visibility, collaboration, and cooperation between themselves. And that's a common observation that we made again and again with the organization that we've analyzed. So after aggregating all of this information, having a good framework, policies in place, we're really going into the corporate board where they're saying, definitely in Canada, they're managing the risk appetite and the risk management direction. What is priority for the organization from a risk level to avoid those pitfalls? And for them, the important part is visualization. The important part is govern strategic direction, oversee risk management, and definitely deliver on the maturity of an organization. So I need to mention some points that would be incomplete if you don't say, and that is organizations that are distributed throughout the globe, there are multiple layers of exposure, and that also has the impact of technology and technology drive. And you realize with cyber, AI, reputational shocks, they're escalating much faster And so to assume that a all-knowing board, all-seeing board understands everything, that may have worked in the past, but as organizations are getting more and more complicated and more diverse and more distributed globally, we're not only looking at one market, we're looking at several markets distributed throughout the globe where a single corporate entity may be operating. So that's where, again, the ability to visualize, understand, prioritize becomes more important. You can only prioritize and visualize what you can and what you or prioritize what you actually can see, understand, and realize. So now I want to take you guys to when we're talking about all of this aggregate data and the data aggregation is happening with spreadsheets. A lot of spreadsheets are in use, and that's okay. That's okay. We definitely want to mature. I've seen Word documents in use. I've seen PowerPoint slide decks also in use. So in all of these cases, the the effort definitely was there from risk managers, risk directors, risk analysts to aggregate data. But the aggregation was almost siloed. That this is the risk management team's responsibility. It was not the organization's responsibility, and that brought in further issues and further concerns. The other part that we want to really also mention is that when you're looking at a flat file that contains a single view, that is almost old immediately as it is created. So you have again a risk director or risk manager working day and night prior to a particular reporting cycle, providing the risk reports. But by that point of time, this area of the organization has already changed. They have more data available, more information available, or multitude of different risks that they have observed right now, and that data is not feeding into this area. So you realize risk, while it can come from any direction, but the aggregation of risk is definitely coming from front lines and different areas. And there's a time it takes for the corporate board to see that risk when you're using a flat file such as Excel, your spreadsheets, your Word documents, and your PowerPoints, etc. So when we talk about heat maps, this is your general heat map. This is what you can do it a 4x4, or you can do it a 5x5, or I've seen also 4x5s, 5x4s, etc. So it's very simple. You have your list of risks, and this is what we're used to. And maybe somebody generates this in a spreadsheet, somebody aggregates this data and positions this in a Excel sheet, in a document. But this is what we have. And this is where many individuals are saying, no, heat maps are not working for us. We definitely need to look at better ways to do things. So when they're saying better ways to do it, they're looking at forward-looking insights, context and decisions, governance integration, and real-time adaptability. And the real-time is definitely very important. So from our perspective, we realize that if you can generate likelihood and impact severity and you have the data behind the scene, you can right away see that let's look at this same view. This is another view of the same data to say that let's understand where they actually position based on that impact score. So while in the previous you had cells and it was hard to say, here's like 10 that are important, here's 2 that are critical, let's focus on the critical items. No, let's see what the critical item it is, and let's see how to actually manage it. So you have this particular view again. Not only that can you do that, but you can actually have a dollars and cents values generated and see what particular risk are actually impacting and the most likelihood of actually impacting your organization's bottom line. So this as a view can also be generated. And again, it's the same data that we're aggregating and collecting that can be utilized. So while we do mention that your heat map is such, but heat map data that we have can be used towards generating views that provides you more granular information, more granular understanding. But that same data that went into heat maps that generated all the views that can then also be like, updated on a real-time basis, um, can also generate views towards looking at trends. You can look at trends. You can look at trends by status. You can look at risk sector, parts of actual sector-related trends. So suddenly, from going from a static data, we're now maturing more and getting more real-time insight. And what we've seen from our conversation with different board members is that they wanted to have dynamic data ingestion. They wanted to have predictive intelligence. They wanted to see how they could actually have real-time information at their fingertips. And the static heat map that everybody is almost loving to negate um, is being criticized. But the data that we used, it's really the visualization and the real-time use that will generate value. And this value you can see over here, if it can be structured within the bounds of the ERM or the enterprise risk management entity, or the operational activity, the business risk, the environmental. So all of those blocks, and then you can actually look at the state of how that risk is actually managed and what state is it at. Is it initiated in execution? Is it resolved, blocked? Has that risk been cancelled as a no-brainer? Or is it partially closed? And you need to visualize that. Finally, you also want to look at your total approved risks that are happening, your portfolio risk, your current risk score, your risk resolution per month, your total risk that you're actually facing right now. And ultimately, this generates a view that gives you better understanding of your approval status, your risk growth, your risk status, and a shortcut view of all the different risks in the different various scenarios of the ERM organization that you see. So the observation is that if we go back, this is the flat file, single slide in Excel that we've really came to see, understand, which is really the foundational view. But from this view, we can build and grow views that look at granular data, views that look at dollars and cents information and gives the idea of which risk should be like mitigated, views that looks at trends and trend analysis within your organization from a risk level, from a sector level, from organizational growth level, and allows you to like filter based on all the ERM categories that your organization is evaluating on a regular basis, and also how the risk management team has actually treated those risks. And then finally, with further scoring, you can actually generate this view. So I want to say that while our while our attention has always been given to the area of what does the board want, and here's the chief risk officer frantically working towards generating something as fast as possible. I think there's scope for using the heat map related data and generating further views that gives the real-time optimal data decision making that we want. And as I said, for all of you who are here, we're really here to empower our organization, our enterprises. We want to identify risk, resolve non-compliance, and drive seamless innovation. So that brings me to this section where we're going to do a quick demo, folks. So I'm going to stop sharing for 2 seconds. And after that, we'll open this up for questions also. So let me share my screen again. And let me just go to this menu option. See. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, the objective is really risk prioritization, and we've came to look at risk heat maps. But risk heat maps, they have, other ways of visualizing that, but the data is critical. And you can generate scatter plots, you can generate priority plots, and all the while you can actually visualize the risk that you are really prioritizing and looking at. At the same time, you can look at your trend, the growth of risk, and how you're actually mitigating them, risk trends by status, and prediction of risk by sectors. You can also look at them. The other thing that I felt was very interesting from an ERM level, you can actually start filtering out information, saying that I really want to only focus on operational risk, and I want to only look at operational risk that have been initiated as recently, and based on that, your view actually changes. So you realize right away there's 6 moderate, 3 major, and 1 critical, all within the realm of operational risk that you're looking at. And then now from your organization, you can see, you know what, there's 1 critical operational risk. You can also click on that risk and simply go to that risk and visualize it all in the single location. And then you can add documentation, add risk controls, etc. tied to that. But at the same time, you can also do a cross comparison with operational risk and political risk. And let's look at all of those risks that are in execution that we're really trying to monitor at this point of time. So you see how that risk trend actually changes, how that prioritized risk heat map actually works, and what these individual risk, etc., are really coming into play. So that is a view. So again, the humble risk heat map. This data that you see, this data that is aggregated based on the risk heat map, can generate all of this more data and this view. And it's that analysis that the boards are really looking at. They really want to say that if we have 3 minor risks, could you let me know, are they really, low-hanging fruits that we can resolve, and maybe we can shelve them as soon as possible. But so this is a view that I wanted to share with you, that all hope is not lost for the boards. There is definitely ways to deliver on risk management and risk visualization and heat maps. And finally, I want to mention about this particular homepage, and there are some diagrams that we mentioned over here, that your risk approval, risk growth, risk status, and your PISIS information, it can all be visualized from a single location. So with that, folks, I want to go back and mention that we do have the 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 obligation, risk managers, risk information specialists. We do have the obligation to support our board in the best way possible. And while collecting data is definitely happening, but we definitely need to also use that data so that we can provide real-time, on-the-fly reports, as opposed to, I've done all of this effort over 6 months, and now there's 6 months worth of data that is still pending that I don't have any clue about. So this as a opportunity, as a tool, actually delivers on that. So with that, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation slide and go back to our screen over here, and I'm going to stop sharing